Koine Greek, and welcome. Today we're in John chapter 3, taking a look at the second half, well, more than the second half of verse 29 into verse 30. Very first thing that I should probably tell you is I took the time, looked this up, and in spite of my egregious worrying, this is in fact from the sixth principal part of this verb, so it is passive. No issue there. We're all good. You probably saw it in the note. Moving on. Let's go ahead and get started with this text after we take a look at our rubric, everything that we want to find. Here we go. Ho de philos tu numphio, ho hestekos, kai akuon autu chαῖρε dia tein phonein tu numphio, haute un he kara he eme pepleirotai, ekainon de auxanein eme de elatusthai. And that's as far as we're going to make it, and it's going to take the while. Let's go ahead and find our verb. No. Ha, here we go. Though it looks a little bit odd with that sigma right there. What we have here is a form of histemi, I want to say. This omega sigma is actually going to be a participial ending. It is because that article right there, nominative singular. It is masculine in form, and it is off of the perfect stem of this verb, which is always hard to remember for me. And it is active, and of course, as I said, a participle, so it means the standing. All right, so now we can take a look back at the beginning. Ho, nominative singular, philos, nominative singular, masculine, and ho philos tu numphio, omega nous right there. That's going to be a genitive singular, masculine, and the friend of the now particular groom the one standing, who is standing. And since we have a perfect tense participle right here, what we might actually have is a present perfect idea. So has been standing and is standing up until now. So that's how I'm going to include that in our translation, because all too often in English translations of ancient texts, the Bible particularly, there's the things that are left out, which are clearly in there. When we have a perfect participle like that, it's meaning, it's got a perfective sense. Yes, it's finished in the past, but it has present effects. The aorist participle doesn't have that sense. So when we translate having stood in the aorist, that's fine. When you translate the perfect participle as having stood, exactly like the aorist, you're not getting the same sense that the Greek has. Usually, sometimes it will be intended that way. In this case, I don't think it is, because, well, John's standing there right now. So, and then he has been preaching for a while, so the present perfect idea here is correct. The middle verb, oh gosh, that is a huge one where people ignore it. The particles men and day, they're rarely translated properly. Like de, I've translated and. When you have them together, there's more going on, and I really hope to run into that again. I think we've seen it once or twice so far, and I'm pretty sure I translated it. I would have, because I love those words. So something that we don't do enough of, properly getting the sense of what's going on. It's too simplified for English. This is why, frankly, people need to learn Greek so they can read their Bible properly. Oh well, enough complaining. This is already length of the video, like 15 minutes probably. Estokes, the having stood and still standing, or until now, not with the idea that he's done standing right now, but having stood previously and is still standing, or having stood previously and he's still been standing until now. Kai and akuon, omega nu, we saw that beforehand with akon, but since it's a different subject, nominative, singular, masculine, off of the present tense, aku, so no sigma there. It is active, and it is a participle, and hearing. Hearing what? Why, this genitive right here. Omicron, upsilon, genitive, singular, masculine. So I think I talked about this in a video a couple weeks ago when we had aku, maybe even the last one, not this one, but the one before, when I was in the previous location, how depending on whether the aku takes accusative or genitive, it has a different meaning, and I can never remember which one it is. One of them means here's the fullness of, or here's the sound, and the other one means here's part of, or here's the person. So there's the four different options, and two of them go with one case, two of them go with the other case, and I can never remember which. So this is one of those, hearing him. So it could be hearing the fullness of him, or hearing only some of him. I would think it's not the fullness, because we know that for John, the baptizer here, he is ignorant of a lot of things. He has a crisis of faith at one point when he's in jail. Oh well. So, kappa, got a dative right there, which actually adds in a whole other layer. I realized as I wasn't paying attention. So this is dative, singular, feminine. Not going to be him. His. Yes, his joy. Now that we have dative thrown in, I truly have no idea what the relation is here. I could have sworn it was genitive and accusative. Maybe it was genitive and dative all along. Oh, if I ever find out, I'll probably talk about it. May that day come. Chαῖρε, we've got epsilon iota right there as our ending. This is chαῖρο. So we have a present stem. So it's going to be a third person singular present, active, indicative, rejoices. And we'll stop right there and go ahead and fix the issues with this first. And the friend of the bridegroom, we could enter relative clause right here, because this is the main verb. So the friend of the bridegroom who has stood and is standing and hears him, his joy, rejoices. Or you could have, and the friend of the bridegroom, the having stood and still standing and hearing his joy, rejoices. The relative clause makes it better in English, so I'm going to add that as an option. Who has stood and still standing until now, and hears his joy, comma, comma. All right, moving on. Dia, obtain phoneme, so we've got plus accusative here. Accusatives cannot separate an object from its preposition. Through, obtain phoneme to, no, prepositional phrase has to end right there, so that's singular and feminine. Through, or because of, I now remember, because of the voice or sound. To numtheou, we've already parsed the form of that beforehand, of the particular bridegroom. Haute un he, this, therefore this. This is nominative, singular, and feminine. He tells us that kappa is also going to be nominative, singular, feminine. Therefore, this, the joy, this is going to be a predicate form since it doesn't have an article with it. We have the joy, specifically this joy, rather than this joy as That doesn't make any sense in English. I'll try again. So, since we don't have an article without a, we know that this is acting predicatively, which means we can imagine a linking verb there. The joy is this joy, rather than as we would translate it as an attribute, where we would just say, therefore this joy. I know it's hard to tell the difference in there, but there really is one. Therefore, the joy. Hαῖρε, this is going to be a possessive adjective with that article. We know that this is acting attributively. It takes the same case as the noun it is owning. The my, peplerotai. In this one, we have the tau alpha iota ending, so that's going to be a third person, and it is singular. We've got pep, reduplication right there, so we know that this is a perfect stem. And we have this as a middle or passive form because of that ending right there. And then this is itself, in spite of that omega, I'm pretty sure that it is indicative. So then we would have to try it as both a middle and a passive to see which one makes most sense. Therefore, this, the my joy, has been filled, or therefore this, the my joy, has filled for itself. Passive is the one that works here. And now again, we could treat this as we do this participle, but the participles are where aspects like this and still standing until now tend to come out a little bit more. It's still probably true. This has been filled and is continuing to be filled. So I'm going to add that in brackets. Okay, there we go. Moving on to the last bit of this text that we have to deal with, and it's already been a pretty long time, so I'll try to go fast. Kainon, omicron nu, accusative, singular, masculine. Day, this is our divine day, as it is called. It is a third person singular present, active, indicative. It is necessary. And this takes an indirect statement, so a infinitive, which we find here with epsilon iota nu, and a accusative subject. Therefore, it is necessary for that one, two, and this one means increase, and so here we have the emphatic E right there, and this is accusative and it is singular, and for me, still part of a indirect statement, latusthai, sigma theta alpha iota is a middle passive infinitive, and latu, those double taus tell us that this is the present tense, which means that epsilon, even as an infinitive, though we wouldn't have one, this epsilon is not the augmenting vowel. It's part of the stem, so present, middle, passive again, infinitive. For me, to decrease for myself, which means decrease something else, would be the middle meaning, or passively, for me to be decreased, to decrease with myself as the object. The passive one is the one that makes sense in context. Right, so we don't need to worry about that. For me to be made less, or to decrease. And there we have it. Now let's take a look at this from the beginning, where we started. And the friend of the bridegroom, who has stood and is still standing, hears his joy. He rejoices because of the sound of the bridegroom, because of the voice of the bridegroom. Therefore, this, the joy, the my joy, has been filled and continues to be filled. For that one, that would be the bridegroom, it is necessary to to increase. And for me, day, it is necessary to decrease. Yeah, makes sense in and of itself. Let's take a look at verse 35 through to the end, and then we're done. Therefore, an inquiry happened of the disciples of John with a Jew concerning purification. And they came to the particular John and said to him, Rabbi, he who was with you, I would throw he in there, across the Jordan, to whom you yourself have witnessed, behold, this one baptizes, and all people are coming to him. John answered and said, Is a man not able to take not one thing, unless it is given to him from heaven, the particular heaven? You yourselves, your own very own selves, witness to me that I said, I am myself not the Christ, but I am sent before that one. Who has the bride is bridegroom, and the friend of the bridegroom, who has stood and is still standing, hearing his joy, rejoices, because of the voice of the bridegroom. This, therefore, the joy, my joy, has been filled and continues to be filled. For it is necessary for that one to increase, and for me to decrease. And there we have it. This is not only the end of our video, it is the end of our paragraph. So, boom, that's awesome. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope taking a look at this has been helpful for you, and I hope that you have a very good time of summer. Farewell.
Hey, not asleep yet? That's okay. I've got tons of other videos that are equally sleep-inducing. Check them out. Alternatively, you could take a look at this video over here